Okay then, right. In this video, we're going to be looking at occlusion and how to generate it. I'm going to be using the treasure chest I created, obviously sped through it in the other one, and this is a bit of a slower breakdown of how occlusion works. Um, Now, basically, the idea behind occlusion really is to generate soft shadows, create shadows where light normally doesn't reach. Um, so it kind of gives a nice sort of shaded effect to the model. Good for doing cheap lighting, but also generally in games, it's used to create, I suppose, more depth. You know, fill the crevices with shadows. Especially good when you've done high poly models and you're baking down. And with this one, it's more about sort of generating the shadows, really, to kind of, well, you'll kind of see for yourself. It'll enhance the model quite a lot just by generating the shadows. So I guess the nearest approximation to it is if you use skylight in here and you rendered it off, and the shadows that it gives you is kind of similar to the effect that we're trying to achieve. So let's get down to this because it doesn't take too long. Um, you need to create two different export files, one called low and one called high. So you should have your model selected and the pivot should be all in the correct place and everything should be done. It's probably best that you have them as one, but I don't think it makes any difference really. But you want to select the model and you want to export the first one. Now by default it will always send it to the max directory, so I believe if I go OBJ, because we're saving it in OBJ format, and you can see I've got quite a few in here from across the years. I'm going to save it in a less abstract place. So as I said in my folder structure file, often if I want to keep these separate, I put them in the models directory. So I'm going to create one called low, and all those options are fine. It might be worth you ticking those three if they're not ticked, and press export. Done. Right. And the next thing we have to do is we have to generate a higher poly version. So I'm going to attach these two now. So they're all in one. I won't save the file, so they're still separate. And what we're going to use is mesh smooth, and it's important this because you can't use the same file twice to make this work. We have to use a higher poly one, which is fine. Normally you'd make more details and make it more efficient. With something like this, you don't want to. So we're just going to kind of slap mesh smooth on, and you'll notice that it's going to round it off like this, and it's going to look absolutely foul and horrible. Yours might look great, absolutely fantastic, but this is not what I was trying to achieve at all. If you've done your smoothing groups correctly, and they're all set up, and it's important that you don't leave them blank, that you actually do put custom smoothing groups on your model, or at least auto smooth it, then by ticking this option, it should put it back to how it should look. However, important to point out, you can kind of see here actually, there are some little errors to kind of fix them, which is well worth showing you, I suppose. Smoothing groups. Just make sure, so guarantee that this is 3 all around. There you go, 3 all around. So if we change them to let's say 21, I'm just going to go for random numbers here. So, and these ones change to 22, and those ones are fine. That one's fine as 3. Right, if I try and reapply that again, mesh smooth. I'm blind. There it is. Turn it on. And you see now it's maintained it. Okay, so important to bear that in mind. Once that's done, we can now export that. Export, and we export this one as high, because it is our high poly model. Export, export, and just to prove that, I'll collapse this. You can see that it's subdivided it quite a few times. Oh, mouse got stuck. So go back. Because I don't want that. There we go. And I'm going to delete that now, just so no accidents happen. Because I hate mesh smooth. I hate it's often it was the biggest pain, when I was learning, because make mistakes, and everyone does this, of accidentally collapsing that and ruining a model. So learn, get rid of it afterwards. So we've got that now. We're now ready to open our third-party renderer, which is XNormals. This is a free program. Google it. It's an absolutely fantastic program to, considering it's free. And it's just used for baking different maps from high and low poly models. So this is where you put your low definition meshes. So you can see I've already got one in there, always by default. But I'm going to go right click and remove mesh, and I'm going to right click and add mesh. And this is where I've got to find my mesh. So it's gone to the old directory. So it's not in there, it's in there. Mini models, models. Right, first one, low. Add that in. Next one, right click, remove mesh, and do the same for high. There we go, done. So high definition meshes and low definition meshes. And it's important to point out that here, maximum frontal ray distance and maximum rear ray distance are two options that we're going to have to change. I can guarantee it's probably going to need tweaking, but we'll give it a shot with 0.5, always worth it. But basically all this does is it changes the amount of distance it looks. So it basically, imagine it fires out a ray, like a laser for example, and it sees how much depth there is there, and it projects that as an image or saves it as a texture, and that's kind of what that is, and that just defines of how far it looks, either on frontal or rear. So often, very rarely though, these settings might differ when you're fine tuning. You could spend an awful lot of time doing that, so I'm going to try not to spend too much time tweaking these, because as I said, I might have to it does take time, and I might have to jump the video. Going into baking options, this is where we're going to save the model, and we're going to change that. So it's actually, I don't want it in there. I'm going to drop it in textures for now, and I'm going to pop it in PSD and then delete it afterwards, because we don't need to keep the occlusion one. It's worth pointing out it only needs to be temporary. In fact, I'll drop it in TGA, but as I said, it's only temporary. So so you could create a temp folder if you want to. That'll do. We don't want it to be in a super high resolution to start with. I see that I've had it in 2048 and not 1024 for this, but it doesn't really matter. When you're first testing it out, just have it a really low number, so 128 by 128, or even 256 is decent enough for a good machine. It does it really, really quickly. Edge padding is fine at 5, though I believe the default is normally 16, and also the normal bucket size I think is 32, but it doesn't really matter. I'm going to keep mine at 5, and I think I'll keep it at 32. I don't see the point in putting it down to 16, but yeah, we've also got anti-aliasing, which is also very useful, but bear in mind, the higher you set these settings, the longer the render will take, so there has to be a balancing act here. Down here, our maps. Of course, if you're creating a normal map, you tick there. We're only creating an occlusion map on this occasion. And you can also bake textures and from a high poly mesh down to a low poly. I've used that for trees and stuff before that I've got from ZBrush, which is really important part of my workflow. And you might be thinking, we'll just use the ZBrush for it, but this program is really good, really efficient the way it deals with things. I'd much prefer the occlusion that I get out of this than what I get out of ZBrush any day. So it's good stuff. Cavity maps, there's just loads you can have a look at, and this is going to be expanded upon at some point, so it's only going to get better. So anyway, with ambient occlusion selected, we're going to press generate maps. Give it a second, and you can see it's kind of the net. In fact, that's not too bad. It's not a million miles off anyway. There's some irregularities, so we'll go back and we'll change the low distance. So we'll change that to 1, and let's see if that improves things a bit. Because really, we want to get rid of this bit here where it's all white and these odd patches. Oh, that's it. It's getting there now. Nearly gone. Okay, 1.2. I don't want to overdo it. But you can see how you could tweak it for ages. Ah, so close, so close. 1.5. Sometimes if you can't get it perfect, you have to make changes manually in Photoshop. It does happen, but you see I'm starting to get to a point now where it's starting to see through one way or another. So I might drop that back to 1.2, and I might put that one forward to 1.7. This is where a little bit of fine tune is in order. Okay, I've gone the wrong way there. Totally the wrong way. So that's 1.2. Let's try that one as 1.7. Ah, that's the one. That's the one. Okay, 1.9. So close. 2.1. Let's jump up a little bit. I could probably fix that now, but seeing as it's... Let's go for a few. That's it. So those little areas I can tweak afterwards. I'm not going to do any more than that. If there's any other areas, I can fix them as well. But that generally looks okay. So once you're kind of happy with it from a distance, then select the map that you want to create. So I'm going to go for the full whack 2048 on this. Doesn't really need it, but what the hell. I might do a skip forward at this point. I think that's probably appropriate because this can take a minute, as you can see. Although saying that, yeah, it's a pretty steady rate, I'd say. Yeah, and my machine's, it is i7, so it's all right. Decent graphics card, but it's nothing special. So if you've got a proper gaming machine, it would probably race through this. Anyway. Okay, so a little skip forward and we're almost there. Also worth pointing out that if you're starting to do this sort of stuff, I went on about my processor, but really what really does matter is RAM. So make sure that you've got a good amount. Okay, yeah, this looks good. There's probably be a few little issues here and there that need to be addressed, but generally speaking, doesn't look too bad. Not really. We'll find out, I suppose. Close that. We close the program now. We don't need that open anymore. And we hop into Photoshop. And now what we're going to do is we're going to open up that file. So let's root out where that is. Okay. Got myself confused. There we go. Right. Chest underscore occlusion. This is the file that it's created. And all I'm going to do is drag this into Photoshop. And it puts it on top of PSD, and it should match up nicely as long as you chose the right resolution. And that is the start of it. So before we get any further, it's worth going in and cleaning up any issues. So right down here, off the bat, we know that there's some little problems, and the heel brush might be able to do some of it, and might be able to do some of it. Let me point out. Convert it to, let's rasterize the layer. Not sure why it was like that. Okay. Not impressed with how it's dealing with this, to be honest. Content aware, that might make the difference. Yeah, nearly there. Okay. Yeah, it's not turned out too bad for a quick job. You can spend a little bit more time if you wish cleaning yours up. But save this video going on too much longer. I'll leave it as roughly about that. That'll do fine. Going down here. Get rid of that. That one turned out quite good. Okay, that's that gone. Any other areas, irregularities? There's always a few around. Up here as well. There's an issue. Nice and easy one. Really just black. And there's a few like this, but we're not going to worry about that because the thing will sit on top of it, the arms. Okay. I think that's about it, actually. I'm not sure what this bit is down here. I doubt it's probably needed though. So let's get rid of that as well. I'd say this is probably where heel brush, I love you so much. When it works, it really works, this tool. When it doesn't, well, you wish it worked. There we go. That's not done a bad job of that. I can also see a problem there. I believe that is with the teeth. So I'll have a look at that. It might be worth me putting it on first and seeing how it looks. Okay, so with it all kind of mostly cleaned up, there might be still a few areas that, you know, need work. We'll drop it on. So most of the time multiply will do the trick. However, it's worth going through the filters to find one that you feel fits best. So I know before I found overlay to be quite good with this one. However, in this occasion, because I've changed a few things since, it doesn't seem to fit the bill anymore, which probably means I need to adjust the brightness and contrast of my model, which is absolutely fine. However, multiply doesn't seem too bad actually. It's not a million miles away. There's some things I'm not entirely happy about now that I can see it on it. Like down here, a few little scruffy bits, but we can start fixing them. Down there as well. Clean that up, and yeah, generally that seems alright. Doesn't seem too bad. Teeth look a little bit messy. Yeah, so that's going to need looking at. Let's go zoom right in. Okay, I'm probably just going to black that out completely. I think I had to do that before the other one, so let's just knock that. There we go. Multiply. Right. Now, what's also important about an occlusion map is that once it's on there, you also should tweak the settings. Don't have it on 100% and adjust the brightness and contrast if necessary in order to make it stand out or become a little bit more prominent. So in this case, a little bit of tweaking. What also is well worth doing is colorizing it and not leaving it grey. In fact, leaving it grey is like the worst thing you can do. So always add a little bit of color to it. And what actually I would like to point out is that because some areas might not want the same color, like such as here with my gold, I don't want that to be colorized in the same way. Isolate that and inverse. So I'll just colorize the rest of it. So I go too overboard. Just a little bit, just to take that grey away from it. And not a fan of that. Okay, so it's a little bit more colorized. And if we invert that, select inverse, and we colorize specific areas, so with mine it's the gold, I can make it feel just that little bit more golden. And a little bit of red. I might also brightness it as well. Let's drop the saturation just a tiny bit. I haven't gone too over the top. There we go. Okay, let's see how it looks then. So save as TGA, treasure chest, okay. Yeah, 32 bits. Click on the model, and there we go. That immediately has started to look better, considering what it looked like before. So I'll do it again, just take that off, save it with it, without it, and with it. So without it is like so. Oops, there it is without it, and with it. I'll save copy that. Just so you can kind of see the comparison a little bit clearer. Okay. Right. So I believe that one is our copy. Yep. That one is our fuse. Yep. Okay. I probably just need to reload that. It should update. Oh, it's not updating. Because I haven't switched it back on. What a Burke. Okay. You can tell it's late now. There we go. Okay, so there it is, side-by-side comparison, so you can get a full idea of the difference between it. So when rendered, you can really see how different it is. It gives a much nicer feel to the model. In fact, I kind of prefer this one to the one I rendered before. That's a little bit annoying, but it kind of does seem to work a little bit better. So I might use this one. Although there is obviously little areas which still need tweaking underneath. There's always stuff. But yeah, anyway, that's that. Probably overkilled this as well, so don't do that. But yeah, I hope this was somewhat helpful to you, and thanks for watching.